Good evening. We had some excellent results after last month's programme, which have now brought the total number of arrests for serious crimes to more than 320, and that's thanks entirely to information from Crimewatch viewers. And we've had an important development on one of the reconstructions. That was the case of the missing 18-year-old Dinah McNichol. You may remember some friends last saw Dinah with a man that she'd met at a rock festival in Hampshire last August. The only hope police had of discovering what had happened to Dinah was for that man to come forward. And 4 days after our programme, he did get in touch. Detectives are in no doubt that this man has had nothing to do with Dinah's disappearance, and he has been able to take their inquiries several stages further. The man remembers that on the Monday after the festival, he and Dinah decided to hitchhike home. It was early in the afternoon when a motorist offered them a lift.
He picked us up from a petrol station on the A3. I thought that it could have been a Vauxhall Beaver at one point. Possibly olive green or some similar shade of light green. I thought it was probably between 8 and 9 years old.
Oh, that concert was brilliant, wasn't it? I mean, I've never been.
As far as I can remember, the driver had sort of straw-coloured, wavy hair, between 35 and 45.
He asked the driver to drop him at junction 8 on the M25, the Reigate turn-off, leaving Dinah in the car.
See you then, bye.
I was definitely under the impression that she was going home. Dinah gave me a telephone number when I was getting out the car, and I phoned her up, but there was never anybody in.
Well, Dinah's home is in Tillingham in Essex, which is a good 80 miles away from Reigate. So the crucial question now is what happened to Dinah after that? If that motorist was you, or you know who he is, or if you know anything about where Dinah may have gone next, remember we're talking about August last year, please do call us. More detectives have been drafted into the incident room, and it is now being treated as a full-scale murder investigation. The number here to the studio is 081 811 8181, and our lines are open now.
Has anyone offered you some electrical goods which have fallen off the back of a lorry? The truth, of course, is that nothing's ever stolen without someone having been a victim. Our next case is one in which the choice of victim seems to have been random. In fact, the whole crime might have been opportunist. This is Sevenoaks in Kent on Friday the 24th of April at 20 to 9 in the morning. Linda Cottam, a manageress for Seaboard, was arriving to open up the local electricity showroom.
Good morning, Sevenoaks Seaboard. Linda speaking. Can I help you?
Hello, Linda. It's Peter from Thomas Shaw's office here. Can you confirm you received your delivery this morning?
I don't know. I've only just arrived and I'm locked. I haven't been in the storeroom yet. Why? Is there a problem?
Well, I'm not quite sure. Bob Penny, who was due to come to you this morning, hasn't arrived at 2 other stores in the area.
Ian, mate, what time are you going to be missed?
Due at Richmond, 7:30.
I'll just pop into the stockroom and check. Would you like me to call you back, Peter, or will you hold on? OK.
Look, don't fit me up. I asked you what you got in the van. Now, what's it worth?
I'm not messing you about. I'm telling you, it's cookers, heavy gear, heavy stuff.
Oh, well, actually, Peter, I think we've got a problem here.
Hello, Bob. Bob, this is... Peter, it's just gone dead.
It's 5:30 in the morning, and Sevenoaks was Bob Penny's first delivery.
Normally we don't work on a Friday, but we'd had a bank holiday the weekend before. They'd asked us to come in on that Friday to make up. I've got a full load on the lorry, but at Sevenoaks should have been just a brief stop. I did notice on one of my return trips to the lorry that there was a Cortina turning in the courtyard. There was 2 men in it. But on my return journey, I noticed that the car was empty, so I presumed that the 2 men had gone into the flats above the shop.
Inside. Get inside. I said, get inside. Right, get your jacket off. Come on, get it off, quick. Hurry up. Keith's
Well,
lorry.
as the man with the beard had a knife, I wasn't going to argue with him.
Well, then keys there, what do they do?
Well, they are the keys to the lorry. They're my wagon keys.
I was scared and confused, just didn't know what was happening next.
Get your trousers off. Don't you look at me. Keep your head down. What about a tail lift on a lorry? How does that work?
It's got 2 buttons, one up, one down. It's got some flaps, 2 at the side and 2 at the back. If you don't lift them in the right order, the tailgate doesn't open. And if you don't lift the lever at the side of the tailgate, the whole thing don't work anyway.
You got that, Mick? Do some laces. Don't you look at me. Keep your head down.
The bearded man that was doing most of the talking, his speech was slurred and he smelt heavily of alcohol, which was also a bit frightening.
Right. You're coming with us.
And they made it apparent that I was going with them. And I thought at that point that I was an embarrassment to them. I'd seen too much, so I didn't know where I was going, what they were going to do with me or anything. I did notice that as we were getting in the Cortina, the first 3 digits of the registration were www.
Get in there. Get right in. Lay down. Keep your head down. Go on, right down. That's it. Right, stay there.
The younger man drove the lorry, which followed the Cortina out of Sevenoaks. Bob recognised the route as the A21 towards London and saw several landmarks. The Badger's Mount Hotel, and up the road, the Fantail restaurant at Farnborough.
How old are you?
42.
42, eh? I'm 42. You got any family?
I wasn't sure whether the bearded man had the knife on him or not, but if he was talking to me, I felt it wise to answer him back.
I've got to make some phone calls. Im, mate, what time are you going to be missed?
On the one occasion Bob saw the driver of his lorry, he seemed clearly competent with heavy vehicles. Did you see this small convoy? At about 6:30, they reached Bromley. There'd be few people in the town that early in the morning. But maybe you were on a bus and saw a man lying in a car in his underpants and mouthing, "Help, police." Bob recalls 3 women on the bus, and of course the driver. Just after the town centre, they went through an estate like this. Possibly it was Downham, and the driver seemed exultant.
We've done it. We've only bloody done it.
Did you notice these early morning visitors on your estate? And why did they now want to stop Bob seeing their route? In fact, we know they drove for about 5 minutes and went past a British Telecom depot leading to a Waitrose car park. Did you see something rather unusual take place here?
Right, come on, get out. How'd you get? Come on, hurry up. Get out, quick. Keep your head down. Don't look.
When they put me in the boot, it was very disorientating, because then I didn't know where we were going or what was happening. I'd already been travelling for quite a while. I just felt that I had to get out of the shoelaces because they were hurting by then. I did manage to get out in the end.
Go on. Right, come on, get your head up. In there.
The boot was very uncomfortable, and the back axle was very noisy, and the petrol fumes were coming through.
This is southeast London, Deptford, Rotherhithe, Peckham, New Cross, a region built round and under railway viaducts. Bob heard trains and another lorry. Maybe this is where the goods were transferred.
One of the men got in the car and moved the car to the other end of what I presumed was the yard. I think to be out of earshot. And then something quite unusual happened.
Wallet. I need your wallet. All right, mate. You go and get some breakfast, eh? Right?
Bob believed he'd been abandoned. But an hour later, they'd returned, and after several stops came here to Rotherhithe. Did you see them dump the truck in Warndon Street at 9:45? This is a residence car park off Avonlea Road in Peckham. The Cortina arrived here 15 minutes later. Bob's been in the boot for over 3 hours.
Right, come on, out you get. Out you get, hurry up. Face the wall, get your stripes up. Here. Put them on. Keep facing the wall. Right. You've been a lucky bloke so far. We had nurture. Now keep facing the wall.
I should say that Seaboard have quite radically changed their security procedures and delivery procedures because of that crime. John Han, in one way, it was an extraordinary tin pot affair, this. As I said at the beginning, it seemed to be something they just decided upon on the spur of the moment. On the other hand, armed with a knife, these men are presumably pretty dangerous.
The most terrifying ordeal for Bob Penny. He's of the opinion that it was an opportunist crime, and I tend to agree with him. But let's be fair, these men were armed with a knife. They were skulking around the back alleys at Sevenoaks at 5:30 in the morning. They're obviously no angels. And once they'd actually stolen the load, they soon knew who to telephone to offload it once they'd reached South London.
Are they local men? They seem to have local knowledge.
Not local to Sevenoaks. Certainly as they were driving through the Downham estate, as we saw on the film, Bob Penny was under the impression that they knew the area well. And again, the Waitrose car park, if you're a stranger to the area, you would have great difficulty in finding it.
Now that bearded man was pretty distinctive and fairly drunk. He was swigging beer as they were driving along at times.
That's right. What we do know about him, he was obviously a drinker. Bob said he smelt very heavily of beer. He's a man who appeared to be subject to erratic moods. 1 minute he was very pleasant, the next he was very aggressive. He told Bob he was 42. We feel he might be slightly younger than that. The physical description, 5 foot 10 inches tall, stocky build, had a slight beer belly, had a full cropped beard, greyish short hair, and he spoke with a South London accent.
And the younger man, whom he called Mick at one stage, seemed to have been the owner of the Cortina.
That's right. There's a great possibility of that. What we know about the second man, he was white, mid to late 30s. He was more passive than the bearded man, 5 foot 11 to 6 foot inches tall, thin build, straight mousy hair, again spoke with a South London accent, and if I could reiterate, the bearded man called him Mick.
OK, and presumably you're going after all white Cortinas to eliminate them with WWW registration. Incidentally, if you've seen a jacket like this, a Seaboard jacket, Bob Penny's is still missing. It's got his name on the inside of it. Here's the number if you can help. It's 0818 118 181. You can speak to a detective, or if you prefer, ask for a BBC researcher. Or you can call the Sevenoaks Police Station direct on 0732 74 0055. That's 0732, the code for Sevenoaks, 74 0055.
And now here are Detective Constable Jackie Hames and Superintendent David Hatcher with faces you might recognise on this month's photo call.
Do you know this woman? Look out for her the next time you're shopping. She's seen here at the Asda Superstore in Watford, closely watching this shopper's trolley. We believe she's been responsible for a number of handbag thefts around the Hertfordshire area. The 2 men with her are West Indian and in their 20s. One of them sometimes wears a baseball cap. Stolen cheques and credit cards have been used, totalling many thousands of pounds. The team were spotted again here at a jeweller's in St Albans on the 25th of April, where they used a stolen card. The woman is in her 20s, about 5'6", with frizzy dark hair which has a gingery red streak through it. She often has her hair tied back in a ponytail and wears large earrings. If you recognise the woman or can help in any way, please call us now.
Alan John Joyner gained the trust of many investors when he set up in a business as a financial consultant. His company, Link Financial Services, started in the early 80s, but last December, when customers tried to contact him, it seems he'd disappeared. Inquiries so far have revealed that nearly £250,000 of investors' money has gone missing. He may still be driving this white Alfa Sud car, registration number HBC 571V. He was last seen on the 28th of December in Worcester. Alan John Joyner is 45, 5'11", with a broad build. If you have seen him or know where the car is now, please let us know.
Do you recognise this woman? We'd like to speak to her in connection with fraudulent transactions totalling nearly £100,000. Since the beginning of last year, stolen cheques have been cashed at high street banks all over London. The woman has been caught on security camera a number of times. The cheques are often in different names, but the handwriting is always the same. She's in her early 20s, about 5 feet tall, and has light brown hair with blonde streaks. If you do know who she is, please call.
Perhaps you know these men. They may have information about a rape in the Camberwell area of London. Just after midnight, in an alleyway at the Mary Datchler estate, a 15-year-old schoolgirl was raped at knife point. During her ordeal, she was taken to Denmark Hill, where she was later released. We'd like to speak to two men who were in the area at the time. One of them is seen here in a minicab office. He was later joined by another man who is described as being about 20, 5'7", and wearing a jacket with fur around the collar. He had a green bandana around his head. The other man is perhaps a bit more recognisable. He's taller and was wearing a red scarf round his neck. Please ring if you think you can help with this or any of our other photocall cases.
And the number is 081 811 8181 for any of our cases tonight, 081 811 8181.
Photocall last month was a spectacular success. It prompted 263 viewers to call us. There have been 4 arrests so far as a direct result. A good deal of property has been recovered, Interpol have become involved, and several more arrests seem likely. One man who was wanted in connection with a fraud inquiry had just checked into a small hotel in the West Country and had been drinking in the bar when his face appeared on Crimewatch Update. The man stayed where he was and waited patiently for police to come and pick him up. In another bar, this time in southeast London, someone saw another face that seemed familiar, and a man has been charged with armed robbery. A couple who saw themselves on Crimewatch apparently put on wigs and tried to leave their home unnoticed. But meanwhile, 5 other viewers had rung in with the couple's name and address, and they too have now been arrested and charged. As I say, a lot of other information came in from Photocall, and more arrests seem imminent.
Now, police are depending on Crimewatch viewers tonight to help them make sense of a murder. Jacqueline Palmer-Radford was well liked. She lived with her 2 sons in the Hampshire village of Eversley near Reading, and her life really revolved around the children. 11 weeks ago, she was found dead at her home. Jacqueline's sons are played in our film by actors and have been given fictitious names. Our reconstruction begins in Eversley on Tuesday the 31st of March, the day before her death.
Do you need any help with your homework tonight, Sam?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Jacqueline and her husband separated a year and a half ago after 18 years of marriage. She and her 2 sons, 17-year-old Sam and 6-year-old James, had continued to live in the family home, Riversdale House.
So what do you 2 fancy for dinner tonight, then? Lasagna or pizza again?
Pizza!
Is that all right with you, Sam? It's the second time this week.
We were always very close, simply because there was no one else with her. The most important thing with Jacqueline were the children. She'd worry all the time for them, making sure they had plenty of clothes, getting their day right from the start.
Since her separation, Jacqueline had taken up new interests in her life. She applied for an open university course and became involved in a number of sports. She was socialising more and widening her circle of friends.
So do you think you're going to take up tennis then, or...? Well, I quite fancy it, but I think it's going to take up too much time, really.
I'd known Jacqueline for about 18 months. We were very close. I think we sort of regarded each other as best friends, and we used to confide in each other a lot. If there were problems or if there was anything bothering her, she used to phone me.
On the day before she died, Jacqueline, as usual, collected James from his school in Crowthorne, 4 miles away. At around that time, on the opposite side of the road from where the parents normally park, one of the mothers remembers a man in a dark brown hatchback car, possibly a Vauxhall Chevette. The man didn't seem to be watching the school gates. He seemed tense and serious, staring straight ahead of him.
Sam? Come on, you're going to be late. Your breakfast is on the table. I knew he shouldn't have stayed up to watch that film.
Mum, have you seen that assignment I was working on last night?
Yes, you left it on the floor. I'll put it in your college bag. Oh, now who can that be? Hello? Oh, hi, Mum. Look, I can't talk now. I'm in a bit of a rush. Yes, we're running late this morning. OK, fine. I'll call you later. Yep, bye.
A few hundred yards along the road from Riversdale House is a small office block. The main road through the village is a clear way, and employees arriving for work at about 8:30 that morning remember seeing a stranger in their small car park.
you, Tim?
No, she doesn't start till tomorrow. The first thing I noticed was her green scarf, which was covering most of her hair. She made me think that she didn't want to be recognised.
Jacqueline would have driven past the car park as she took James to school just before 9 o'clock. 10 minutes after that, Chris Gaylor drove through the village.
I was on my way to work in Reading. As I came into Eversley, there was a brown Chevette type car stopped in front of a house, indicating right, but there was no oncoming traffic. I waited behind the car for 10 to 20 seconds. He then turned into the driveway. As I looked up the drive, there was a stone drive with a couple of garages at the end. There was no cars in the driveway.
No one saw the car leave Jacqueline's driveway. Was it there when she returned from the school run 10 minutes later? Her mother remembers she sounded her usual self on the phone.
Well, actually, I'm going shopping. I've got to go and buy James a new jacket. Yeah. Yeah, I thought I could try that new shop.
Later that morning, the beige car was still parked outside the office block.
I noticed the same car in a different parking space. The lady was still in the car, but she'd taken the scarf off her head. She was very, very pale, red or ginger, short hair. I got the impression that she was very slim. She seemed to be parked outside until at least mid-morning.
At about midday, someone saw a smartly dressed man with a clipboard outside Riversdale House. There were plans to sell the house, although it wasn't yet on the market, but perhaps this was an estate agent or a surveyor. He may have seen something significant. At 4 o'clock, James was still waiting for Jacqueline to collect him from school.
Come on, James. Mummy's not here yet. Shall we go and phone her?
At about 5:30, Jacqueline was found in her home. She'd been suffocated. This is such a sad case. Mr. Long, perhaps we could start with the brown hatchback car, which was seen turning into Jacqueline's driveway. Do you think it's the same one that was seen the day before outside the school?
It's possible. The driver at the house may have been a male. Certainly the man at the school was definitely a male. We have a photo fit of that man. He's described as 40 years, sandy-coloured hair, mid-brown, scruffy on the top, wearing a white shirt over a grey pullover. He had a particularly pale complexion and looked ill.
Right. Now, what about the woman in the beige car?
Very important we trace that person. Anybody that would know the identity or the make of the vehicle or knows anyone that's loaned or hired a vehicle of that description to such a person, I'd like to know.
Right, remember we're going back to the end of March or the beginning of April. There was the man with the clipboard in the afternoon, which just might tie in with a pen you found in Jacqueline's driveway.
Yes, fairly common pen that retails for about £32 in most outlets.
It's a shaper
country.
pen with a zigzag design on it.
Yes.
Something we didn't see in the film, around 11 o'clock in the morning, a man was seen running near Jacqueline's home.
Yes, about 300 yards away, a rather unusual man wearing a raincoat, jogging bottoms, training shoes, carrying a plastic Sainsbury's bag and another bag that looked like an airline bag.
If you saw him, you'd remember.
Yes, simply like to know who he is.
Mm. And something else not in the film, in Jacqueline's house, you found an open university prospectus with a name on it, Lawrence Gillam, and a time perhaps, so it looks like 10:40.
That's quite correct. The importance of that, she might very well have had an appointment with somebody. We'd like to know who Mr. Gillam is.
Please, if you can help, please call us. The number's 081 811 8181 here, or you can call the Basingstoke Police Station direct, and that number's 0256 473 111. That's 0256, the code for Basingstoke, 473 111.
Just trying to catch up on some of the calls coming in. There have been an enormous number on that seaboard hijack in Kent, and a number of names have been put forward, including a couple of names just come in the last few moments, which seem to tie in with a large number of other details that we've had on that case. There's also quite a number of calls coming in so far on the Dinah McNichol case. We'll bring you more on that in a moment. Incident Desk last month, incidentally, had one case which seemed to cause a particular sense of outrage. An engaged couple crossing a road in Middlesex were nearly hit by a passing car. After the man shouted abuse at the driver, the car then turned round and the pedestrian was stabbed. You might like to know that a man has now been charged with murder, though the arrest was not as a direct result of the programme. Now for this month's Incident Desk, here are Jackie Hames and David Hatcher.
First on Incident Desk, a crime we hear little about, male rape. It's very rarely reported, but in tonight's case, the victim had the courage to go to the police. Around 11 p.m. on Friday, the 8th of May, the victim was attacked by these two men on the London Underground. We think they got on the tube at London Bridge. The victim managed to escape when the train stopped at the Angel. The two men stayed on. Do you recognise them? This man's in his late 20s, about 5'7". He had closely shaved dark hair and had an earring in his left ear. He wore a black donkey jacket and dark polo neck jumper, black tracksuit bottoms and boots. The second man's in his early 30s, about 6 foot, with spiky reddish hair. He also had a moustache and a goatee beard. He wore a khaki coat, a tight-fitting grey T-shirt, washed-out blue jeans and baseball boots. One of the men referred to the other as George, and both had London accents. If you do know them, please do call.
Carl Crooks was 10. He died minutes after being hit by a car only yards from his home. It happened on a Sunday evening, the 17th of November, in Collyhurst, Manchester, at around 6:20. Carl was crossing the 664 Rochdale Road between the junction of Whitley Road and Osborne Street when he was hit by a car believed to be travelling towards Manchester city centre. Witnesses saw two men in the car. They stopped, reversed, turned the headlights off and sped away. We now know from forensics that while the car was a white Ford Fiesta manufactured between 1976 and 1983, a piece of trim was partly detached and a headlamp broken on the driver's side. Witnesses remember a rear spoiler, square dowel headlights and a 7 and a V in the registration. Perhaps more importantly, they remember that the men in the car were in their mid to late 20s. The passenger's hair was dark and the driver's was lighter with blondish streaks. And there are other people who may be able to help. A dark-coloured Sierra or Granada was in the area at the time. The driver and possibly the passengers may have seen something. If you can help in any way, please do call, and perhaps someone involved may have the courage to phone in tonight.
Finally, two robberies which we believe are linked. On Saturday the 4th of April, thieves broke into a house in Epsom, Surrey and stole paintings, antiques and, among other things, documents. Now, these gave details of a relative's jewellery along with her address. She lived in Ammanford, South Wales. A month later, on Wednesday the 6th of May, this woman called at her house. There was a for sale sign outside and the woman persuaded the owner to show her round despite not having an appointment. Minutes later, the owner let in two men who the woman claimed were her husband and brother. They threatened her with a knife, tied her up and ransacked the house. Do you recognise the woman? She's in her early 30s and about 5'5". She has distinctive green eyes, long blonde hair and is well-spoken. Both the men were in their early 30s. One was about 5'11" with short dark hair. He wore a faded denim shirt and jeans. The other was taller and had dark curly hair cut short at the sides. He was wearing cream chino trousers and a black polo shirt. One of the things taken was a tea towel identical to this, with the motif Jonathan and Suzanne, January 26, 91. If you've any information or can help with any of our other Incident Desk cases, please do call.
And once again, this is the number 081 811 8181. 081 811 8181.
It can't be said enough that in crimes of rape, the assailant is usually known to his victim. That doesn't diminish the crime in any way, of course, but it does serve to underline that the attack women generally fear most, rape by a stranger, is, thank heaven, comparatively rare. When it does happen, though, it causes a particular sense of outrage. That's why the crime makes headlines, and it's why police in Wiltshire are confident that in the next few minutes, someone watching will come forward to help them solve a crime that's caused widespread disquiet in the town of Swindon.
Here's your homework. See how many you can answer. And the answers are on the back, but don't cheat.
This is Swindon College of Further Education.
Okay then, see you next week. Good night. Good night.
At 9 o'clock, Barbara Martin was finishing her lecture on food hygiene.
Thanks, Margaret. Good night.
Bye.
Barbara crossed from the catering block to the main block and walked up the stairs to the third-floor staff room.
Hello, can I help you?
I'm looking for my girlfriend.
Oh, what does she do? There's nobody up here. In that case, you're much more likely to find her over the other side in catering, where I've just seen you.
Ah, thanks.
At about that time, the caretaker was on his way to the top floor to lock up.
What are you doing here? I've come to pick up my girlfriend from the food department. Well, this isn't the food department. Anyway, the catering classes are finished. They're all locked up. Oh, this is probably waiting in a car park. He was quite short, about 5'4", and very stockily built. He had wide shoulders. He looked as though he could have been a boxer or a wrestler or done bodybuilding, that sort of thing. I was still a bit suspicious of him, so I thought I'd better follow him and see where he was going. And I saw him leaving the building, so I thought, well, that's all right, he's gone then.
A few minutes later, Barbara Martin left the building on her way home.
Hello, haven't you found her yet?
No, I haven't. I'll wait another 10 minutes.
OK, then. Hope you find her. He had a rather unusual way of carrying his head. His chin seemed to be fairly far forward. Now, it didn't strike me as odd that he should be waiting where he was, because there were still people around in the building who would have to be leaving, and maybe his girlfriend was one of them.
Two days later, at another site of the college, some 2 miles away, Swindon young musicians were rehearsing for a competition. At the same time, lectures were finishing. A woman, we'll call her Kathy, portrayed here by an actress, was one of the last to leave. Brian Howlett, the caretaker at this site, was starting his rounds.
It must have been about 12 minutes past 9. And this particular man came up the steps from the entrance, and he gave me a sort of a look which made me a bit suspicious. So I thought I'll follow him up the stairs, because just recently we've had some stuff taken from the classrooms. Well, I followed him up the stairs to the 3rd floor. Now, I couldn't see him at the 3rd floor, so I didn't give him another thought. You know, I thought, well, he's gone and that's that.
Thanks very much.
See you next week. Yeah, see you. Bye. Bye now. Bye. Police. I'd like to report a rape. A few minutes ago. Can you come as quickly as you can, please?
Something wrong?
Please stay with me till the police arrive.
The attacker clearly knew the layout of the college. Maybe you've seen him at a gym. His accent is described as local to Swindon, but with a London tinge. Remember, he's stocky and about 5'4". 081 811 8181. 081 811 8181. Several of the investigating team are here, or you can call their colleagues at the incident room on 0380 728 728. That's 0380, that's the code for devices, 728 728.
Our final case is a robbery at a jewellery shop in the small town of Nelson in the Lancashire Pennines. It's an area where the crime rate is relatively low and the detection rate relatively high, so the townspeople were shocked at a raid on their local jewellers. Police feel the robbers may have come from outside the Nelson area, and in fact our reconstruction begins in the neighbouring county in Wakefield, West Yorkshire.
Well, I hadn't used the car for a couple of days, but when I went to bed about 10 o'clock, the car was still parked outside.
Radio Lancashire News at 1 o'clock. Good afternoon. The headlines: the temperature hots up in the electioneering.
It's 2 days later and 50 miles away in the Lancashire town of Nelson. Scotland Road, the main shopping street, was fairly quiet that Thursday. Glenn Britton has managed the jewellery shop for the past 6 years.
My father opened the shop about 25 years ago. We're quite well known throughout this area, but also we have a lot of clients from virtually all over the country. We specialise in the antique jewellery and watches and clocks, etc.
Later that afternoon, Susan Riley passed the shop, as she does every weekday after work. Her husband waits on the corner to drive them both home. It's 4:25.
Well, as we approached the junction of New Scotland Road, and I noticed a white Cavalier waiting to turn in, and I got quite a good look at the man sitting behind the driver. He seemed to be in his late 20s, quite a big bloke with black hair, probably a black moustache.
The one I could see best was the driver. He had a thinnish face, longish nose, and was quite mean looking, and straggly light brown hair. He was between about 25 and 30.
I commented to my wife that they looked a bit of a rough crew to be in such a nice car.
Is this the right quote?
Yeah, I think so.
When did he say he'd been to collect it?
Late Monday afternoon.
Right, well, you'll have to ring up and check.
Right.
It'll definitely be back.
I'll phone in the morning.
All right, then.
I was on the riverbank and I heard the noise, like the crunching of stones. And I looked up and there was a car across the riverbank that had grinded to a halt. They appeared to be burying something in the leaves. Well, they all ran off, laughing and shouting. I lost sight of them when they went behind a row of houses near the motorway.
Well, Mr. Close, what were they burying?
Well, immediately after the car was abandoned, we found green sweatshirts, balaclavas, 2 baseball bats, and this piece of wood that looks like it may well have been involved in the point system of British Rail. It had on it the letters AY86 and then SWT with an arrow facing upwards and the numbers 86 again.
Southwestern Transport 86 maybe, somebody will tell us. But the boy lost sight of them as they headed towards the motorway. Where did they go next?
We have another witness who has seen a Fiesta-type car parked on the motorway, on the slip road of the motorway. This car was displaying its hazard lights, although there was nobody in the vehicle. The significant point about this is that had the raiders run up the embankment onto the motorway, they would in fact have entered the motorway directly opposite where this car was parked.
Now, someone saw another apparent breakdown on the motorway at about the same time.
That's right, about a mile away and facing in the other direction, we had a breakdown wagon and a white Peugeot saloon. Again, the significant point of this is that regardless of our inquiries in breakdown and the RAC and various other people, we've failed to have any success with it.
Well, they may have seen something significant, of course. Now, the car they used to carry out the robbery was stolen in Wakefield, and that's more than 50 miles away, but it had clocked up 250 miles since then.
Yes, it was stolen 24 hours earlier from Wakefield, and incidentally, there was an incident there some 10 days before. We know there was very little petrol in the car, and we're hoping, bearing in mind the artist's impression, that a petrol pump attendant or a garage owner may be able to help us with this.
And finally, the items they stole were pretty distinctive.
Yes, I'm told that two of them in particular were unique. There were two watches, one which were the Rolex quartz, and they had those markings on the back.
Right, Kuczynski in the second one. Well, if you can help, here's the number to the studio, 081 811 8181, or you can try the Lancashire Police Headquarters, and that number is 0772 617 771. That's 0772, the code for Preston, 617 771.
Well, a lot of calls coming in tonight, especially on the South Eastern Electricity Board hijack, that lorry that was hijacked at Knife Point in Kent. Several names have been put forward, and a number of them really do seem to tie together with information police already have, and seem to tie together as well with a car that they have their eye on. There's a good deal of information too coming in on the cheque fraud woman. Several names have been put forward for that. On the hit and run, it looks like they might have identified that car. As I say, a lot more information coming in. We'll tell you more about it on Crimewatch Update. That's in an hour's time at 11:15. But we really can't go tonight without mentioning these. Piles and piles of them. Last month, after 8 years, we dropped our farewell, which is don't have nightmares, do sleep well. Frankly, I have to say, I thought the reassurance was wearing just a little bit thin. But I was plainly wrong. The result was a mailbag bulging with appeals to bring it back. There was a call to do the same. You may have seen it on Points of View. And as if that wasn't enough, with a perfectly straight face, a programme on ITV tried to swipe it as a catchphrase for themselves. Now, that really would be something of a crime. So, don't have nightmares, do sleep well. Good night.
Good night.